Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and I'm so excited about our guest for the next 3 days. He's been a frequent guest on Hope is Here because we always have such great feedback from his programs. Tommy Lanham, pastor up at Glen Cove Christian Church in New York City, here in the Bluegrass State today, which also has been home for him. Tommy, great to have you back with us today, man.
Greg, it's great to be back. I always enjoy being on your show. I love what your show is about and the ministry that you have through this show, and I'm just happy to be a small part of it.
Well, I'm looking forward to our 3 programs, and of course, one of our good mutual friends is Tom Haley, and
Yes.
man, he's actually the guy that connected us.
He is. Tom's a great guy. I love going to see him later today, actually.
Well, there you go. Life is all about relationships, and met Tom 20 years ago at Toastmasters, and then he introduced Tommy and I, and now Tammy, who's a part of the Hope is Here team. Just kind of cool how God connects the dots. But we're going to talk about your favorite word, and a word that I love, and is enthusiasm. So define enthusiasm for us, Tommy.
And enthusiasm is the fuel that gets us to where we're going. Regardless of where it is we're going, that enthusiasm is what takes us there. Somebody put it this way. They said that enthusiasm is the fulfillment of achievement. It's what gets us there. Nothing is achieved without that enthusiasm to move forward. It actually comes from 2 Greek words and has some spiritual connotations to it. The en meaning in, and the thus is a form of the Greek word theos, which is the Greek word for God. The original meaning of the word enthusiasm was God in you, or God inspired. Of course, obviously today when we think of enthusiasm, we don't think of that. We think of having an extreme excitement or something like that. So I like to combine these two, and I came up with my own unique definition of enthusiasm, and it's this. Enthusiasm is a God-inspired fire ignited deep within your soul that drives you to never settle, to live with passion, and to turn the world upside down.
Man, I love that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that on the podcast here, rewind a few times and write that down. But, one of the things is you're sharing that, and I love that definition. Unfortunately, and of course, our culture, our world, the past 2 years because of COVID has been extremely challenging, and it's been hard for people to keep up their enthusiasm. But man, as followers of Jesus, we should be enthusiastic every day about what God wants to do in our life, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Considering the fact that it literally means God in you, or God inspired, as followers of Jesus, we receive that gift of the Holy Spirit. So technically, we are walking bundles of enthusiasm. Now, how that manifests itself is sometimes different because, life is not always cheery. It's not always, you're walking around with a smile so wide you can eat a banana sideways. We have things that happen in our life that causes pain, that causes agony, that there are these brick walls that we hit up against. But without enthusiasm, those things are more likely to stop us and even destroy us. But when we have that enthusiasm to keep on going, even when the excitement is not there, when the excitement is gone, enthusiasm is something deeper. Excitement is something on the outside. Enthusiasm comes from within, and it continues to drive us even when things happen that try to rob that enthusiasm from us.
Well, it's interesting you were saying that. I was flashing back to 1990 to 92. I was an assistant basketball coach at Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, and one of the things that our head coach, Ralph Willard, said to us as coaches before we would go out for practice each day, he said, guys, we have to have a tremendous amount of enthusiasm. And he said, if we will do it as coaches, it'll get the players there.
Right.
And it's amazing. Enthusiasm is contagious, isn't it?
It's extremely contagious. It's the kind of thing that even though it comes from within, it overflows. Mm-hmm. And when you are enthusiastic, other people are more likely to be enthusiastic. There will be a few people that are kind of turned off by that. That's okay. You don't necessarily need those people in your life. But most people, it will actually give them enthusiasm. And enthusiasm, I feel, is at least partially tied in with hope, which is what you talk about. You talk about that hope, and hope works the same way. It overflows into other people. If you have hope, that hope is going to overflow into other people, and that may be the only hope they have that day. Enthusiasm is the same way. When we live out that enthusiasm, it spills over into other people, and it gives them a little bit of that enthusiasm as well. Plants that seed.
Well, I've talked about Psalm 118:24 quite a bit on here. It's the verse in the morning I've been trying to say each morning as I get out of bed. This is the day the Lord has made. I shall be glad and rejoice in it. And sometimes to rejoice and have enthusiasm, I mean, we have to make that choice because it's not based on a feeling, right?
It is not. It's not. Sometimes we think of enthusiasm as just this emotion, but it is a decision. It's a decision of whether to live your life enthusiastically or not.
One of the things I've learned too, they've heard me talk about, I joined a place called Stronger Life last summer and started working out. And one of the things is I get out of my car and walk into that class. There's usually about 15 people there. I decide to be enthusiastic, and I found it's contagious. But I found out even though I may not feel good, if I start saying things enthusiastic, clapping, maybe listen to some praise and worship song, it changes my mindset and my feelings. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. We have these anchors that we kind of develop over our lives, and when we are in those moments when something is just awesome and we're extremely enthusiastic, we will do things, whether it's in a ball game and you're cheering, or maybe you pump your fist in the air, or maybe it's a body movement that you have in those enthusiastic moments. You can actually reproduce that feeling at other times by reenacting some of those. One of my favorites is clapping my hands. You know, if I'm excited, I'm enthusiastic, and something's going well, I'll clap my hands and everything. If there's a time when I'm down and I'm not enthusiastic and I need to pull myself out of that funk, that's an anchor for me. It kind of changes my attitude. I change my physiology, and it brings me out of that, and it begins to develop some of that enthusiasm inside of me.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We just saw some enthusiasm. It's amazing how food can do that. We just brought in some parlor donuts, and man, we saw a lot of enthusiasm from the Lanhams and Megan and James Jordan, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Donuts have a tendency to do that. Donuts, ice cream, all those things. Unfortunately, they don't have the long-term effect. So I would encourage people, have a donut from time to time, but also eat your salads too.
All right. Well, this is the question, because I know a lot of people are like, yeah, man, I love this Tommy guy, and man, he's enthusiastic, but I just struggle with living in the enthusiasm zone, as you call it. What keeps people from living in their enthusiasm zone?
Well, I like to call them the Themundanians. I have a name for them. It's funny, the word enthusiasm has a spiritual connotation, but the word mundane also has a spiritual connotation. When we think of that, we think common, boring, or ordinary, or something like that. But another definition of the word mundane is earthly or worldly, as in opposition to the heavenly. And so these things in our lives that keep us from moving forward, that keep us from living out that enthusiasm, I call the Themundanians. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, therefore, since you are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, that kind of reflects back on chapter 11 in that chapter. But then it says, throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. When we are running that race, it takes enthusiasm to run that race. But there are things that hinder us, and there's sin that entangles us. And those things are different, but they both keep us from living that life of enthusiasm. I call all of these things Themundanians. I believe that Satan is the ultimate Themundanian. In John 10:10, we have two purpose statements. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Satan is the ultimate Themundanian because he wants to steal, kill, and destroy your enthusiasm and everything else that is good in your life. It's not always just sin. Notice it in Hebrews 12:1 there, it points out two things. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Sometimes it could just be negative thinking, which isn't necessarily a sin, but it hinders us. It keeps us from moving forward. And we can have external Mundanians, things that happen to us that we got to overcome. But the hardest ones to overcome are those internal Mundanians, our own thoughts, our own feelings, that self-talk, that negative self-talk that we give ourselves. And we got to overcome those, work through those in order to live that life of enthusiasm.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite books is The Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. And to have enthusiasm, it all definitely starts in your mind. Well, Tommy, I know that there's 8 decisions that you think people must make to live in your enthusiasm zone. Can you share those with us?
Absolutely. I use an acronym of the word enthused to list these 8 decisions. And they are decisions because our destiny is not determined by our conditions, but by our decisions, the decisions that we make every day. And here are the 8 decisions that I believe will help you live in your enthusiasm zone. Decision number 1 is the E, and it's embrace your weird. Every one of us are unique. Every one of us are different. But unfortunately, we look at ourselves and go, why can't I be like them, or why can't I be like that person? Because you were not created to be that person. You're created to be you. And only you could be you. When you try to be somebody else, you're going to be second at best. But when you be you, you could be number 1 at who you are. So embrace your weird. The N is never settle. Never just give in and say, well, this is just the way I am, or that's just the way things happen. Never settle. Continue to press forward. The T is turn the world upside down. Make a decision today that you're going to make a difference in the world. It's not about me. This enthusiasm thing is not about me. It's not just so that I can have a happy life. It's so that I can make a difference in the world. And at times that will make me happy. At times it's going to break my heart. But it's what we do. And that enthusiasm goes beyond both of those. And we do what we must do in order to make a difference in other people's lives. Doesn't mean we're going to get all the ink. Doesn't mean they're going to make a movie about us. But it means we're going to make a difference in the world. The H is to make the decision to hope as you climb to your God-given potential. Hope is your word, and it is the fuel that helps us climb to our God-given potential. Because God, I feel like so often God has so much more in store for us than what we realize. And we just kind of sit back and accept life as it is, and God is going, I've got a higher calling for you. If you would just climb up here and take it. And so that's the next decision. ENTH. What is the next one? U. The U is utilize the power of positive failure. And I know that's something you talk about as well. How to overcome that failure, to fail forward, as John Maxwell says, and use that. But failure is a good thing if you learn from it and move forward. The S is set goals. We've talked about that before. I've written a book specifically on goals, and it helps you to develop those steps and outline those steps toward moving forward. The E is engage your heart. You got to be passionate about where you're going. And then the D is for discover your purpose. God has a purpose for each one of us. Discover that and move forward.
Wow, good stuff. Great stuff. You've been blessed by this one. I encourage you to share a podcast of this program. You can find it at our website, hopeishere.today, or whatever platforms you listen to podcasts on. I also want to encourage you to check out Tommy's website, TommyLanham.com. That's LANHAM.com. He is an author, a speaker, a pastor. You'd be really blessed by that. He's a great writer. He's got a great blog. But I hope you'll join us again tomorrow, because Tommy Lamb's going to be back with us for a couple more programs. I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.